with Fate, I wanted to start off and let everybody know, and I just double checked it. So for Fate Accelerated, it's still available for free online at evilhat.com. You can get the game, the full PDF of the game. You can get a character sheet, which I did find, and I'll send you a link if you want it later, Russ, because I know you said you were having a hard time finding it. It's also super cheap. I think, well, I mean, the print copy that I have says only $5 in the top hand corner. So like my print copy was very, very cheap. I bought it in a game store. I think you could probably still get it on Amazon. Fate's a really nice little game. And then if you're interested in Fate and want something a little bit more complicated than Fate Accelerated, there's Fate Condensed and then the full-on Fate Core, which gets more involved in ways that I won't discuss here because we're just going to focus on Fate Accelerated. So yeah, we've already got a setting established. We're going to be playing on Mars in 1899. Humanity has advanced through not so scientific progress. There is a level of steampunkery and magitechery going on. So magic in terms of like D&D kind of magic is not really a thing in the setting that I've imagined. Instead, it's like science. So imagine that all of the science that we have today has been advanced several hundred years further by 1899 because of like the scientific application of magic. So there may still be people that are capable of like raw kind of sorceress, like wizard type magic out there, but they are very rare. Now it's a science, it's controlled, and it's used to advance technology. So humans have populated most of the solar system, and in fact there are even a few outposts beyond, but we are playing on Mars. Mars is still Mars though. It is an airless, unlivable planet except for the amazing domed cities that have been constructed with the huge agro farms that have been set up underground, and there are many people happily now living upon Mars, and being steampunk a little bit too. It's kind of got a Victorian flavor to it. So we already have a setting, but we need to make some characters. So I guess we'll start with that. Now, if you're interested, like I said, you can pick your stats, or there are, in the rule book, there are basically 6 stat arrays that give you a general idea just by the name of what kind of character you are. So there's the Brute, who is primarily strong and maybe not so smart. There is the All-Star, who is kind of adept and agile, still physically capable. Again, not necessarily so much on the smart, and certainly not a sneaky type. They want attention. There's the Trickster, which is exactly what it probably sounds like. The Guardian, who is more about protecting people but also being safe, so they're very careful. There's the Thief, who is about being sneaky. And then there is the Swashbuckler, who's about being flashy. So if you wanted to pick one of those, I can just tell you what your stat array is so you can adjust your sheet.
Okay. Ross, do you want to go first?
Sure. I will go... Thief.
Gonna be a thief. Okay, so on your character sheet, you want to set your sneaky to +3. And again, you'll want to hit the T and then click on the +0 on sneaky to be able to backspace and then adjust it. Good, you got it. Okay, so sneaky is +3. Quick and clever are both +2. Forceful and sneaky are +1. Wait, that doesn't... I'm looking at the wrong line. I'm sorry. Hang on. So, thief. Sneaky is +3. Quick and careful are +2. Not quick and clever. My bad. Quick and careful are +2. I was looking at the swashbuckler. And clever and flashy are +1. And then forceful is +0, so that doesn't change. Good deal.
Sweet.
Troy, what are you thinking?
Well, I think with a thief, if we're going for stealth, then possibly is a trickster quite stealthy, or is that?
Not quite as, but they're up there. They're more clever.
I'm not sure if Croy the player can handle that, but I'm sure the dice rolls will make up for it. Let's go with that. Let's go with
Okay.
With a trickster. What's my approach
Then
line? My
clever. Yeah, your clever will be +3.
Okay.
Your... Sure, I'm on the right one. Sneaky and flashy are both +2.
Okay. And then... Oh, and flashy.
Yep.
Yep.
Sneaky, flashy, +2. Forceful and quick are +1.
Okay.
And then, yeah, careful is +0.
Do I have to think of a name?
Are those updating? Because I didn't see those.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, as long as you can see them, that's what's important. Alrighty. So then, yeah, the only other things we need to figure out, name and a description, that's completely up to you. Keep in mind, kind of Victorian sensibilities. We can also put your name on your token, which I placed next to your character sheets. And I think what I will do is, first of all, I'm going to change my color so I don't get confused with Croy. And then what we can do is change your name color to match your color in the VTT.
I can't seem to write anything in the name text box.
Oh, hang on. It looks like it's gone.
Oh.
How did that disappear? Okay, well, no worries. Well, hang on, I got it. For those watching, there's no inherent what's the word I'm looking for? Character sheet support in Owlbear, so I've had to kind of finagle it a bit. Here, I'll try writing in that one. Another one in for... So you both should have a box there now that hopefully you can write in. Again, if you click T and then just click on the word description in the name box, it should put the cursor at the end of it so you can backspace and enter.
I think I've got
I'm going to
now.
refresh, but it wasn't showing up in mine.
Ah.
I wonder if we're out of sync somehow with each other. Let me refresh real quick.
Yeah, I'll refresh as well, so maybe we'll... We're using Owlbear for those of you who recognize it.
Yeah. Oh, site cannot be reached. That's not good news.
Good disapproves of my name choice, Smithington. Gerald Smithington.
What is happening? Don't tell me Owlbear just went down.
I'm in.
Are you? Because I'm not. That's wild.
I've got double.
Checking for. Am I having
Oh,
internet
that?
connectivity issues all of a sudden?
Yeah, Discord's fine.
Yeah, I know. Well, if you guys can see it, then I can still. Oh, hang on. It might be back up for me now. Yep. Okay, I'm in. See. Think everything. Okay, I see Rosie. I see Smithington. Good deal. All right, so looks like you got it figured out now. Yeah, description is whatever you want it to be, and then as far as the system goes, the big things that are going to affect your character aside from your approaches are your aspects and your stunts. Let's see what happened with those two description boxes down there. So, with your aspects, an aspect is something that basically there's a couple of things that can happen with it. I can compel your aspect to encourage you to do something, essentially, by giving you a fate point, which are the kind of poker chip looking things up there that you should hopefully be able to move around. If not, I might need to change how they're classed. But yep, Croy can move it. Good deal. So you will start with 3 fate points, which is equal to your refresh. That really refresh only comes into play in between sessions. But if you want to grab 3 of those and move them down close to your character sheet so you can keep track of them, you got 3 fate points. You can spend those to activate your aspects to give you bonuses to rolls, essentially. You can also spend them to activate your stunts, although we're only going to have 1 stunt as we play. So again, aspects change and improve what happens in some ways, and allows me to kind of drive the story forward. So what we want to do is we want to come up with 3 aspects at minimum. The first aspect is always going to be your high concept, which is essentially kind of like think of it like a character class / description, like an overall description of who you are. So are you the gambler with the heart of gold, or the intrepid sky captain, or the surgeon with shaky hands, like something along those lines. Now, while you're coming up with your high concept, there is something I want you to keep in mind for the game that we're about to play, in that you're dealing with a murder mystery on a train. So I want there to be, in at least one of your concepts, a reason, or one of your aspects, a reason for you to get involved in the investigation for the murder. Otherwise, why would you be engaging with it, right? So even though you're a thief and a trickster, that doesn't mean that's what you are. That just helps you determine your stats. Like a thief, while that stat line kind of focuses on stealth, maybe you're a spy, maybe you're it's another good stealth type character. Maybe you're an assassin, although that would be weird if you're investigating a murder. Maybe you're a diplomat who Yeah, it was me. A trickster is very clever. So maybe you're maybe you're an investigator, maybe you're a scientist, maybe you're there's lots of different things you could be. But we want to have a reason for you to investigate the murder. The murder will be someone who is affluent and well-to-do. So I don't know. Maybe you're, like I said, maybe you're an inspector. Maybe you're a police officer. Maybe you are related to the person who is murdered. Would it be
enough to be a writer of detective novels, and therefore the intrigue of a
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Good. I'll go with that then.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, I mean, think of a way to word that as your high concept. Oh, maybe you already did. Oh no, high concept is a wheeler dealer. Nice. Trouble is your trouble is that you're a writer of detective novels. Interesting. I like that. And then your third aspect, we'll leave the other two blank for now, but your third aspect can be like anything that might affect how you do things. So something like you always land on your feet, or which can be interpreted many different ways, right? That's kind of the point of aspects, is you want to be able to interpret them in different ways to potentially both assist you, but also maybe work against you if I invoke them in some way. So usually they're short, couple of words, like wheeler dealer is a good example for a high concept. There's a lot you can do with that. Other aspects, your other aspect could be another kind of form of trouble that's maybe also helpful. Like maybe you are always sticking your nose in, or there's lots of different things you could play with there. Gentlewoman thief, I like that for your high concept there.
I got rid of the trouble box though, and Control Z is not working, so that's not very helpful.
Okay, let me help. I will copy.
Sorry.
And paste. No worries at all. There you go.
Thanks. Could I have mine as like, my thief has basically been working this train, and basically this is her turf, and now somebody's been murdered on it, and she's not very happy about that. So she's purely investigating, because it's like, what the fuck? We're supposed to be stealing from people, not murdering them. Like,
yeah, I like that. This train, I don't have it all mapped out, right? Because this is a one shot, but this train actually travels through all of these points on the map. It essentially does like a massive loop between all of these locations. And you just happen to be on the longest arm of it at this point. And the red dot that I have placed there at about the halfway point, that's the point at which the murder is going to be discovered. So it's not as simple as like backing up. You might as well keep going to the end, because you're halfway from the start and halfway to the end. It's kind of like when somebody's injured on an airplane. They don't necessarily turn it around if you're already at the halfway point. They just keep going. While you're thinking about aspects and stuff, I'll give you a little bit more information on the train. This train, just so everybody is clear, I don't know if either of you have ever been on a passenger train before. But we have this idea in our heads about how big trains are, right? Usually they're, I don't know, maybe at most 2.5 meters wide on the inside, and maybe the last Amtrak I was on was maybe 15 meters long to a car. Like, there's some space there, but it's not gigantic. The train you're on is huge. It is gigantic. Think almost like a cruise ship on rails, and that is kind of what you're dealing with. So it's certainly not as tall Although some of the cars on the train do have 2 stories. More specifically, the observation car, the lounge, and the first class car have multiple stories and multiple chambers inside of them. But yeah, this is an absolutely huge train. Very, very much like covered in polished brass and metal plates everywhere, but wherever there's a place to sit, it is opulent, like crushed velvet, very comfortable, padded, until you get back into like the steerage and the cargo areas where it's pretty much just bare metal that people are sitting on, and bare metal in the cargo bays. The sleeping carriages have several compartments for people to sleep in that can support up to a small family. The dining carriage is quite large and has 2 levels as well. The lounge has a casino in it, relatively small, but still, respectable, as well as a couple of bars, 1 on each level. The first class carriage, as I said, has essentially like opulent suites. There's like 5 or 6 suites for extremely rich people, with sitting areas as well as sleeping chambers and full bathrooms. And then the locomotive, which neither of you will have seen based on your character types, is just this massive beast that's painted crimson. It's actually called the Crimson Steamer, is the name of the locomotive that pulls everything from one location to the next. So we did go with a couple of extra aspects as well, which is perfectly fine. Dedicated collector, amateur athlete, sticky beak. What do you mean by sticky beak?
Likes to stick his nose in other people's business.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I follow. All right. Likes bows and frills. Okay. Wants all the gossip. Love it. All right, great. Now, the last thing you need to come up with is a stunt. So next to your character sheets, I put in a couple of little tool notes there about how to design a stunt. There's basically 2 kinds of stunts. You either have the top one, which is, because I am in some ways exceptional, have a cool bit of gear, or otherwise awesome, I get a +2 to one of my approaches. You get to pick which one, when I'm doing a specific action in a specific circumstance. And they give you some examples there. So the actions in Fate, interestingly enough, it's similar to, in some ways, Powered by the Apocalypse games with their moves, except Fate only has 4 actions. You're either trying to overcome something, you're creating an advantage, you're attacking, or you're defending. And those 4 things cover every circumstance you can consider, right? Attacking and defending, for example, aren't always physical. Taunting someone into revealing a secret is technically an attack. You're attacking them with your words and your cleverness, right? That's another interesting thing that comes up with Fate, is that, particularly Fate Accelerated, is that you've got these 6 approaches. Those approaches are basically how you approach any situation, and unless I say otherwise, it won't necessarily happen often, sometimes, but unless I say otherwise, you can use any approach for just about anything you can imagine, as long as you can explain it to me, right? There are some exceptions, but if you can explain it well enough to me, like how you're attacking someone while being quick, I'll let you use quick. If you can explain to me how you are persuading someone by being flashy, then I'll let you use flashy. You get to use what you want to use. So that's the basic guideline for that. And then as far as rolls go, as we talked about a little bit before stream, but for those of you who are watching, every roll in Fate uses 4 Fate dice, which are essentially D6s that have a plus. Well, technically they're called fudge dice because fudge was the first game they used them. but 2 sides have pluses on them, 2 sides have minuses on them, and 2 sides are blank. Unfortunately, we don't have that in Owlbear, so we're just going to use D6s, where a 1 and 2 is a minus, a 3 and 4 is a blank, and a 5 and 6 is a plus. And then you figure out what you get. So if you roll 2 pluses and 2 minuses, that's a 0. If you roll 4 pluses, then that's plus 4. If you roll 3 pluses and a blank, that's plus 3, and so on. And then you add that to whatever approach you're using to determine how effective you are. All right, so let's see. We're working on some stunts here. Good deal. Any thoughts on a stunt, Russ? Oh, you got it. You're working on it. Great.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of thinking. I feel like would be pretty opposed to like. There's that whole like Victorian ideal of like the gentleman thief. Like I feel like that, and just like that whole like resorting to actual violence would be beyond her. So now I need to come up with a way of like reflecting that in her stats, because it's like it kind of goes against the rules of the game that she's playing, if that makes sense.
Sure. So, a recent example, and one of my favorite examples of the gentleman thief is the whole idea of like, if you've ever seen the Ocean's 11 movies, like Danny Ocean and his crew, they're all essentially gentleman thieves. And I think in terms of like avoiding violence, maybe you could have something about how you can actually defend yourself with an approach that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like maybe you defend yourself by being charming, right? So you use what's your primary? Your primary is sneaky, but maybe you actually are able to use careful or clever instead of something else to disarm people. I don't know. It's hard to say. You could also, keep in mind, the other type is not necessarily a bonus. It lets you do something pretty amazing once per game. So like the other type of stunt, some examples that they have there are pretty good. Like because I'm quick on the draw, I can choose to go first in a physical conflict once per game. Because I run circles around a leopard, I can show up anywhere I want to, provided I could run there no matter where I started. Like, it basically gives you a one-shot superpower that you can use once per game session. So again, you don't have to come up with it right now. One of the neat things about Fate Accelerated is that although you guys have done a really good job in filling in your aspects, the game actually leaves room for you to come up with some of the stuff as you play, right? Technically, according to the full rules, you can have 3 different stunts. But since you start with one, at some point during the game, you can say, you know what, I just came up with a stunt and I want to add that to my character. Cool, awesome, sounds great. Up to 3. Yeah, so, all right, so let me finish names on the tokens here. So we've got Rosie. Does Rosie have a last name?
Probably not one she'd admit to.
Oh, okay. That's fair. It's your token. Troy. Mr. Smithington. Love it.
Yeah, I think our friend Gerald Smithington is also equally of a kind of veneer of high society, a pretense, perhaps, in order to get themselves into the position where they can purchase or barter, trade. I suppose something a little bit of he's a bit of a fence, I guess, which might explain, come to think of it, how he comes to know Rosie.
Might indeed.
So not a fence, but a purveyor of acquisition and exchange, perhaps.
Of course, exactly. Yes. A businessman of high esteem on the shop front and behind closed doors.
And a writer to boot.
Well, that's a little bit of a difficulty. There is a publishing deal.
Okay.
And it was something that he negotiated quite early on, and it wasn't a very good deal. So he has to come up with a book.
Okay.
But he hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't written anything. And the publishers are hounding him for a book, and they really want to get this manuscript so that they can begin printing as per the contract.
So would you say you both have enough funds to be traveling, maybe not in the first class carriage, but possibly in one of the sleeping carriages? Or are you thinking you're back in steerage with the common folk?
I feel like sleeper.
Yeah, I think we'd be a little bit. Yeah, we're not quite. Well, certainly, General ain't quite made it yet. He maybe had time where he could have afforded it, but he's down a little bit more down on his luck now. Who knows? Yeah. So yeah, sleeper sounds good. Midway. Okay.
So I will throw you guys over there. You can decide which sleeper your room is in, whether it's A or B. As we start, I will let you be anywhere you want. It's deep in the Martian night at this point, roughly 2,700 hours. And yes, I did say 27. I have to keep in mind Martian days are different from Earth days. And so while it is nighttime, maybe it's not 27. Wow, I thought it was longer than that. Apparently it's pretty close to 24 hours. It's 24 hours, 37 minutes. So it's just after midnight, but not quite the end of the Martian day.
Okay.
And are you sleeping, or are either of you night owls? The observation and the lounge cars are often frequented throughout the day. Most people in steerage are probably trying to get as much sleep as they can on their hard metal benches. You do have access, being that you're in the sleeping carriages, you do have access to the lounge and the dining carriage as well, although at this time of night, the dining carriage is relatively empty. There might be a few more affluent people sitting in one of the comfortable chairs, possibly reading a book if they're having trouble sleeping. But the lounge always has some people in it. So it looks like everybody's in the lounge. Okay. So in the lounge, you see the captain, actually, who is very recognizable. And in fact, you would have met the captain because the captain personally introduces himself to everyone in the first class carriages, all the way back to the sleeping carriages, which tends to be more well-to-do people. And the captain actually takes an interest in every passenger. He has spent, at bare minimum, at least 15 to 20 minutes speaking to each of you personally about what you do, and with real interest. And in fact, I would say Rosie probably maybe more than Gerald, although not necessarily, depending upon how focused Gerald is on this kind of thing. You would say that Captain Blackwood actually seems interested in other people's positions and where they are in life because maybe he's not happy with where he's at. He certainly doesn't talk much about being the captain of the Crimson Steamer. I mean, he'll he won't ignore the topic. He won't avoid it if you bring up, well, it must be glamorous being the captain of the Crimson Steamer, this opulent train. He won't avoid it, but he's always just like, well, it pays the bills. And you would assume quite well, because these trains are, particularly a train like this, are generally run by very expensive concerns, or wealthy, I should say. So you see the captain. You also see a gentleman that you know by the name of Mr. Bennett, who is currently playing one of the mechanized poker machines that has cards that flip with kind of a whirring, clanking noise as he feeds some of his Martian coins into the machine. And he's, if you watch him for any length of time, he seems to be up, then he's down, then he's up again, then he's down again. He's more doing it, and it looks like he's putting in smaller amounts of money for his bets. It seems like he's probably just doing it more as something to do. But they're the only ones who are currently in the lounge carriage.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're just four and this is a fairly big room, right? Because it's a big.
Yes. The casino on the lower level is, probably big enough for 40 or 50 people. It's quite large, and there are tables for normal gambling, things like person-to-person poker, blackjack, that kind of thing. But all the dealers are off shift at this point, so it's just the kind of newfangled mechanized gambling machines that are currently functioning, because they are always running and always willing to take money off of anyone who plays them. So as I said, Mr. Bennett is at one of said machines, and he looks like he's been there for a while. You can see a freestanding ashtray with several, almost a mound of what looks to be cheap cigarette or cigarello butts in it. And Captain Blackwood is actually at the bar. And as you watch, at one point, he just walks behind the bar and grabs a bottle of whiskey because there's no bartender currently, and sits down at the bar and pours himself a tumbler.
Rosie is, although as everyone else in this carriage, as far as they're aware, Miss Coulson is sitting in one of the lounge chairs, and she's basically just got a book, sort of reading, but also observing all of this that's going on. She's kind of been idly tallying exactly how much Mr. Bennett has been putting through the machines. Just as more as a way to pass the time than actually any real interest in his financial situation.
You not knowing how much he started with, by your accounting, he's breaking even pretty regularly. Although at times he's quite high and quite low, because it's not like it's a machine that, at least in your experience, anyone has been able to manipulate, because it is a machine. So.
Yeah. Sort of share a glance with Mr. Smithington as he is in here.
Yeah, so Mr. Smithington has been deep in thought. He's got a large leather-bound folder on his lap, and he has a very attractive looking fountain pen, and is sitting there with a blank page, and he begins to scribble, and you just hear him muttering, "Oh no, that just will not do." And he's just and that's just sort of repeated thing. I don't even know that he's necessarily noticed that Rosie's in the room at this point. I think he's lost in thought. He's just, why would they do? No. It's just terrible. Won't do. And yeah.
That kind of writer. I see. So as Rosie is watching Mr. Bennett, and as Gerald is in his writing reverie, you do hear Gerald might notice or might not, depending on how deep he is, but you do hear the buzzer for the intra-carriage communicator go off. And you notice Captain Blackwood get up and kind of grudgingly almost put his tumbler down and get up and walk over to where the intercarriage communicator is. And he picks up the horn and places it to his ear, and then he picks up another piece and brings it close to his mouth. And he's like, "What? No, that's not. What? That makes no sense." And then at that moment, you see Miss Grayson, who you have recognized or potentially spoken to as the aide or maid in waiting of probably the most wealthy woman on the train, Lady Hawthorne, run through the lounge car in her night clothes and off into the dining carriage. And she seems distraught.
Most improper.
And when you
and
say
then
that,
Captain...
yeah, when you say that, Gerald looks up, and he said, "Oh, Rosie, my dear,
Oh, it's Olivia."
She changed her name on you.
No,
But you're
well,
used to her going by different names.
yeah. Rosie
so you
pretty much
adapt
has a new
quickly.
name every single trip, pretty much.
Right.
okay, yeah, of course. I didn't know you were up riding the train. Are you well?
I'm most well. How are you going? How is your latest novel? I look to read it.
Yes, so would I. It would be remarkable if I could just write it first. Bit of writer's block, I'm afraid. It's got to me.
Most terrible.
I thought maybe just getting away for a while, somewhere different, watching the lovely countryside. Well, you know what I mean. The outside,
Yeah.
rolling by, the different colors of red. And it might just make me feel a little bit different, and well, it's not working so far. What about you? How's business?
Business is going well. I had a most successful venture last time.
Perhaps we could discuss that. It would be very interesting to hear. Do you mind if I join you?
Yes. And Rosie smooths out her skirts and then heads in the direction that Miss Grayson has come from.
Okay. So, as you before you leave the lounge carriage, before you're out of earshot of Captain Blackwood, you do hear him say, "Locked out? Did she lose her key again? Very well." And he hangs up the intercom and pulls a very large ring of keys off of his belt and starts heading out of the lounge cabin as well. At the same moment, Mr. Bennett looks around furtively, kind of like looks at Captain Blackwood and looks at the two of you and grabs what few coins have recently dropped from the mechanized poker machine and runs off the other direction.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see. Frightfully improper. What is going on? It's getting late. Are you getting some meal, perhaps? A midnight snack of some description?
Yes, I'm not 100% sure that the dining cart is available, but I did have something in my sleeping carriage. Perhaps we should go that way and we can discuss.
Yes.
But mostly Rosie's thing is to like go and see what it actually like spooked. Would I have spoken to Miss Grayson? Like, is it reasonable to expect, having noticed that she's like the wealthiest or the assistant to the most wealthy lady on the train, who seems like a mark for Olivia? Like,
Would make sense for your character. If you want to have had a conversation with Miss Grayson, you certainly can have. In fact, let's do a flashback. So earlier in the day on the train, you are aware that the Hawthorns are on the train. And you are aware that Lady Hawthorn has a maid. That she is in sleeping car A. She, of course, is not sleeping in the first class car with the Hawthorns. They have their own suite. But maybe you caught up with her in the dining lounge, perhaps, during an earlier meal?
Yeah. Maybe complimented her outfit. Took notice of the, like, particular lace or trim that was on it. And started the conversation like that.
Okay.
Just sort of did it. Very aware that she has a job to do. Like, I don't want to distract her from that. That's not.
Sure.
And I also don't know 100% how, like, demanding Lady Hawthorn is in terms of, like, what she expects from her staff. So it was always just like it was a passing comment and then letting Miss Grayson decide how much interaction she wishes or not to.
She's more than happy to speak to another young woman on the train. She is very open and welcoming. She's enjoying a meal. She invites you to join her. Is there anything in particular you would be trying to kind of draw out of her in this conversation?
I more just want to get a vibe of her personality, because that then, like if she's a really anxious, nervous maid, that could actually be helpful for how I approach the Hawthorns, or like how I do it. If she's like, if I get the sense from her that she's quick and clever, that also might mean that I like don't necessarily go after, because she's probably going to be like the Hawthorns. My probable experience with wealthy people is that it's probably more likely going to be their staff that are going to notice anything amiss before they do, if that makes sense. So it's sort of like my vibe would be working out whether or not she's going to cause me any problems.
So from your conversation with her, you learn very quickly that she is, to put it politely, a little dim. She is very pleasant. She is very proud of her work for Lady Hawthorn. and she absolutely adores Sir Reginald Hawthorne. The way she talks about him, it might even reach the level of impropriety. How much she cares for him, but you don't know if it is improper, but she's very free with her praise of him and his manliness and his strength, and how commanding he is. She's very infatuated with him, although she is the lady's maid.
Okay. Cool. So from that conversation, it's like a 50-50 base, like flashing forward to now. It would be a 50-50 as to whether or not she is running because there is actually something absolutely horrific in there, or running because she saw a rat. Like, that kind of vibe is what
Sure.
Rosie is getting from her. She's not 100% sure as to whether or not there is something that way, but she is very curious as to what could spook a young lady into running through a carriage in her nightgown like
Sure.
that.
So are you going to follow?
I'm gonna head into the sleeping carriage and see if, because I know that was where I was sleeping as well, so I know she's
Right.
had a room there basically.
Okay. So yeah, in seeing her about the train throughout the day, you would have noticed her sleeping carriage, and you all may have been on the train for longer than just today. Like, possibly, I'm assuming that. What was the name you're going with right now? Gloria?
Olivia Olson.
Or Olivia Coulson. I'm assuming that Olivia is probably on a loop, would be my guess, looking for marks, so maybe you've been on for quite some time. The Hawthorns have also been on for a significant amount of time. It's almost like they're enjoying like a Trans-Terra like vacation, as it were. They're just traveling. They're not really going to any place in particular. You know that they're, from having been on the train however long you've been, at least even for the past 10 hours or so during this particular trip, you know that they're taking up the largest suite on the first class carriage, and they take up the largest table in the dining car, and even though it's just the two of them, their maid and doesn't eat with them, and Sir Reginald doesn't actually have an aide de camp. He has no man to attend him. He takes care of himself. Big strapping lad. Anyway, so yeah, you would, in the time that's passed, you would know where her sleeping kind of room is. And the rooms, like the one that you both stay in, are, they're decent. They're large enough for a bed and a small toilet and some storage, like a wardrobe, but you're not having parties in there. It's even difficult to what's the word I'm looking for, to entertain another person in the sleeping carriages, but you're still certainly better off than the people in steerage.
Yeah, my last trip was steerage. It sucked. This is why we're in the sleeping carriage this time.
Right. So, her door is closed, so she wasn't in so much a hurry that she didn't close her door. It is locked.
Yeah, I follow up behind, having gathered my bits and pieces, and say, it would be very interesting to find out what you have. Your acquisitions are always quite exceptional. But is this your room?
It's about to be.
Oh, well, let me just keep watch for you while you work.
Thank you.
And
like to try and open the door.
Okay. So how are you going to do it?
I would have lockpicks, I would imagine, on me. Because that seems like the sort of thing that a gentlewoman Faith would have.
Absolutely. So are you sneaky? Although it's your best approach, is probably not going to work for opening a lock.
I think because
clever would be the. Sorry, go ahead.
I think because there's somebody here who can kind of like shield me and keep watch. I'm probably going to go for like something like careful and just take my time and unlock it, like as gently and as. I'm not going to like try and force my picks into it and like make it, you know. I'm going to actually take my time and take the energy to undo it properly.
Okay. Would you like to, so you have 3 fate points. Would you like to invoke your gentlewoman thief aspect to give you a +2?
Sure. Let's use one of those.
So just to be clear, so we understand the rules, you can invoke an aspect before a roll, or, again, by spending a fate point, you can re-roll. But you don't get the +2 bonus, if that makes sense. You either invoke beforehand and get the +2 bonus, or you spend a fate point and re-roll after a roll fails.
I might hold off and re-roll after the...
Okay. If need be, sure.
So I get a +2 from Gentlewoman Faith, a +2 from Careful, and then whatever I roll.
No.
Yeah.
So you're just rolling Careful. You would only get the +2 from Gentlewoman Thief if you spent a fate point before.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
1 and 3 4s. Okay.
Oh.
+2.
So it's a -1, because the 4s count as 0, the 1 is a -1. And you were using Careful, so -1, you have a total of 1. Which is, on the ladder, average. Good news is, the lock is average in the sleeping cars. So you managed to open the lock.
Excellent.
Well, there's an issue of health as well, I suppose, but that isn't... They're
helping with picking a lock is difficult.
Yeah, probably.
But yes, you can help each other if the opportunity arises in other situations. Distractions and things like that. Technically, I mean, I guess I could have seen if you had jumped in before she rolled and said, oh, well, you know, I'm super clever, so I've seen this kind of lock before, so I'm going to give her a pointer or a tip. The thing is, if you do want to help another character, that also costs a fate point. So, so it's an economy that you have to play with. Unlike some games that have a meta currency, this is not a meta currency you hold on to. You want to spend it, and then you can get it back from me invoking your, or compelling rather, your aspect.
Okay.
If I compel one of your aspects to encourage you to take an action, then I have to give you a fate point in order to do that.
Okay.
Oop, didn't mean to move your character sheet. Sorry. Trying to move the map. All right. Okay. So you're in. As you pop the lock and enter the small room, although there's enough room for both of you to kind of file in there if you want to. There's no one in the hallway, thankfully, to see your actions. But as you enter the room, the first thing that you notice is that this particular room does have a one of the intercom systems in it. Neither of your rooms do, but this room has an intercom. Probably because some of the rooms in the sleepers are intended for the assistants and the maids of the affluent travelers, so they have to be able to contact them without, actually passing through several cars. They have to be able to call their assistants if need be. And the earpiece and the speaker piece for the intercom are both off. the device. So it seems as if she was speaking to someone and just immediately dropped them and started running.
Oh. What is in this room, then, that you've got your eyes on, my dear? Is this, something explicit that you're looking for, or is it just a hopeful fishing expedition?
Fishing, I would say right now, although that does seem rather odd. I wonder if Lady Hawthorne summoned her in a hurry. Well, it does seem rather strange.
Middle of the night, running through the cars in her night clothes, that does track.
Is, perhaps, there is something amiss. I look around. Does the bed look slept in?
Yes, and unmade, which for at least for Rosie, from her interactions with Miss Grayson, you found her to be very fastidious. She straightened her clothing and even her napkin on the table and on her lap several times in your initial discourse with her. So it seems very odd that she would leave her room in such disarray had she the time to do otherwise.
I think it was time that we checked in on the Hawthorns.
Yeah.
It would be most unfortunate to lose out.
I quite agree. What could be right this late hour sufficient to pull this staff member, this court edict out of... Oh, yes, this sounds like something... A food... Good...
Yes.
Good sight. Well noticed. I'm afraid I was too busy writing my next book to notice, but clearly there's something amiss. Well, lead on.
Perhaps
lead on.
We'll get some inspiration. And Rosie basically just sweeps from the room and heads off in the direction of the where she knows the Hawthorns would be.
So neither of you at this point, I would imagine, have been to the first class car. However, yeah, you gotta be careful to just grab your character. I thought I had those locked, but I guess I don't. Oh, I had them all locked to one card, just not locked on the table. Okay, so as you head forward, the lounge car again now is completely deserted. The dining carriage is deserted. I'll let you move yourself, Roy. And once you get to the first class carriage, although you technically don't have access to the first class carriage, it's not like it's guarded or anything. It's just that, most people who are not allowed in certain areas would not have the gall to enter those areas.
Such social norms don't concern one with such abilities and interests. Right. Yes, I feel not at all plussed by overstepping the mark and walking into this fine place.
So the first thing you notice as you enter the first class car is that although the lounge carriage and the dining carriage are opulent, the first class carriage is disgustingly so. Brass and in fact now gold plating is everywhere. The thoroughfares are carpeted with very plush, attractive, kind of burgundy carpets with black patterns kind of woven into it. The walls are rich mahogany and polished to a highly reflective sheen, which does well to offset the kind of magic electric lights that run throughout the carriage. As they do everywhere. It's not like the rest of the train is dark. Also, as you enter the carriage, you can hear, although it's faint and seems to be coming from above, open sobbing. Just hysterical sobbing. And it takes you not long to discover the stairway on one side. Actually, there's one on each side. It's kind of if this were a mansion, it would be kind of the curving stairways, but in the case as it is, it's a quite smart looking brass spiral staircase on either side that goes upwards.
Rosie's just casually taking note of anything that's not fixed down.
Everything is quite fixed. And you can tell just from a glance that the locks on the suites look a little bit more impressive than the ones in the sleeping carriages.
You know,
I will back that up, though. Not everything is fixed. There are occasionally spaced throughout the main hall. There are some nice tables that are well crafted, carved, and on top of those tables there are some candle holders and the occasional kind of like china bowl, the kind of thing you would see in an extremely wealthy person's home. They just have that kind of stuff lying around.
I believe that those are made of real wood and of finest quality, possibly shipped in to the planet. If you were ever to find yourself in possession of such a thing, it would be well, considerable. I would surely find an owner for one. It would be a swift transaction. Just bear that in mind for the next time.
Rosie's eyeing one of the like china pieces and just kind of, my father had one of those, in his house when I was growing up. I broke it when I was 6, and then she just kind of like casually just heads up towards where this sobbing is coming from.
Okay.
With a faint, like, don't get me wrong, she'll totally steal the china, but like she was like, it brings back unpleasant memories, basically.
Gotcha.
Given what happened after that was discovered. Anyway, she ventures up and just is kind of like trying to find where this sobbing is coming from.
Okay. So as you mount the second floor, the sobbing is definitely stronger. But it's not until you reach the third floor terrace that it's clear that this is the floor that the sobbing is taking place on. And as you crest the terrace and reach the third floor fully, the first thing you notice in the main hall is the crystal glass dome that goes over the main hall that allows you just a spectacular view of the Martian night. And you can see Phobos and Deimos in the sky. And there's a bit of a, perhaps appropriately, red tint to everything from the crystal glass that, for the purposes of this particular train and the areas you travel through has to be strong enough to withstand a micrometeor impact. So it's got kind of a reddish tint to it. But it's beautiful. It's breathtaking. And you see before you, probably about halfway down the car, several people. There is Lady Hawthorne that is just kind of standing back away from what you would assume is the door to her suite. You see Captain Blackwood, who is standing there now conversing with Miss Sullivan, who you might recognize as the engineer of the train, who keeps it running and is essentially Captain Blackwood's second in command. And you see Miss Grayson kind of slumped against the wall, just sobbing, just distraught. And they're all looking towards the open door of the suite.
Wow. I wonder what could possibly be doing this.
Let's go and find out. Most intriguing. A mystery unfolding in front of us. And he kind of bumbles off down the corridor.
So as you approach... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna let him go first because I feel like as a novelist, he probably has a better chance at convincing them to let him help.
Okay.
So Rosie's just kind of hanging back.
So actually, the ones who would probably have the most issue with you being here are Captain Blackwood and Lady Hawthorne. Their attention is fixed on whatever they see through the door. So as you approach, you're not prevented to peek inside the door. And once you do, you see there, splayed out in the main room of the suite, the robust and now quite dead form of Sir Reginald Hawthorne. And I think that's a good place to take a break.
Sounds good.
So, Miss Grayson is blubbering on the opposite wall. Lady Hawthorne seems stern and enwrapped by the sight. Captain Blackthorne also seems quite concerned, as does Miss Sullivan, the engineer. And yeah, you have seen now the large body of the large strapping Sir Reginald Hawthorne, champion of the people, as he's known on Mars. His body is just lying there. And as you notice it, at that point, Captain Blackthorne kind of shakes himself a little bit, and you notice that he's holding his key ring in his hand. And turns and looks at you both and says, "Well, what are you two doing here?"
I say, Captain, we heard some terrible noises, and we just wanted to check that everything was okay and whether we could be of assistance, good sir. There seems to have been a calamity befallen. Is our champion well? Is he taken a turn, or, dare I say, and speculate most wildly, has a terrible fate befallen him?
Well, you could always check. Does anybody want to go in?
Oh yeah, be walking forward towards the... good point. Yeah, so standing there sort of saying this, and as I'm addressed by Captain Blackwood, I'm walking towards where the captain is, to speak to him, to address him properly by looking him in the eye.
Yeah, he says, this is beyond my capabilities. He seems very flustered. Miss Sullivan seems kind of almost like she doesn't care. She sees you and Rosie, and she just kind of shakes her head at the captain and says, "Well, I'm gonna go back to the engine, get back to work." And yeah, she heads off down the corridor, assumingly to stairs on the other end of the car, and disappears to one side.
Has anybody look up look at the captain? He needs medical aid. He's lying down. I think he's face down on the floor, is he?
He's actually on his back.
On his back, oh.
So...
There's no sign of life from the man. You can't leave the gentleman lying down if he's well. And I kind of just walk over and look up at Lady Hawthorne. Is she attending the body, or is she elsewhere in standing back?
She's still in the hall. Like, they're all still in the hall. No one has entered the room yet.
Right, okay. Yeah, in that case, I'm just walking. Yeah, just in that case, I'm just walking. I just walk in.
And you are accurate in saying that you look up to Lady Hawthorne, because she is clearly a natural-born Martian. She is over 7 feet tall, due to the lesser gravity here on Mars, and quite thin. Although, aside from being able to see her arms, it's difficult to tell because she's wearing just a lavish, magnificent dress. Not night clothes.
I follow Mr. Smithington into the room. Do you need some assistance?
I think
Mr.
so.
Smithington?
I think so. Let us just ensure that the gentleman is not merely in repose. And I say that quietly and go down. And I make a show of it. I go around the other side of the body so that they can see me from the door. I'm not got my back turned. I've gone around, step around the body, and I breathe down and put my cheek against these, like just to check for breath.
There, no roll necessary. There is no breath. His eyes are open and kind of unfocused, and just kind of he's not there. You do see as you're getting close to his mouth to check to see if he's breathing, you do detect kind of an acrid smell. And if you will give me a clever check. Or any other check that you feel is appropriate to try to identify what this smell might be.
I think clever is definitely my forte. I rolled a 3, a 1, a 5, and a 4, and I think I have a +3 to clever.
Okay, so the 5 and the 1 cancel each other out. 3 and 4 are nothing, so that's a +3. So, yeah, it's definitely. It's not common. Let's say that. It smells kind of organic and astringent. From your research in working on some of your novels and possibly some of your side jobs that you've done, you get the sense that there is kind of a smell of poison, perhaps, and you pull back from the scent, and at that moment, along with the same skill check, you notice that his lips have kind of a reddish, like dark, almost rust colored tint to them.
I look round to Olivia, and I whisper, Olivia, this gentleman has been poisoned.
And you do notice a crystal tumbler on the ground next to him, close to his hand, so it would have been dropped.
And Olivia is literally like, she just kind of leans down like she's looking the body and just sort of whispers out the corner of her mouth, "Oh, well, that's unfortunate." But they want the other people in the corner outside the door, like, noticing what's going on. I also too would actually, while he was initially checking the body, have just been looking around the room, seeing if it looks like it had been disturbed in any way, or like just the general, I don't know, did it look like it had maybe more people over, or I know you said they were kind of antisocial, but like, were there a couple of extra tumblers set out or just anything like that that could indicate that they weren't alone or he wasn't alone in here?
So,
Beyond, the fact that he's fucking dead.
right. Yeah, there doesn't appear to be signs of someone else present. You can see on the little kind of side caddy where people tend to keep their carafes of liquor and the glasses with which to serve said liquor, that everything there appears to be in place. In fact, on a silver tray, where normally you would probably have 2 glasses set there prepared to serve, one of the glasses is still there, and it's clearly the matching tumbler to the one that's on the ground next to him, that is still intact. It didn't shatter. It's a very deep plush carpet in the room. Without investigating further, or more specifically, it's tough to say with a glance. But if you want to look at anything more specific, you might get some resistance from the lady, but we'll see how that goes.
Having heard the thing about the poison, could I stand up and kind of like go over towards where the drinks thing is and investigate that a little bit more closely?
Sure. At this point, as you stand up and begin to do that, Lady Hawthorne and Captain Blackwood enter the room. And Captain Blackwood, particularly looking at Gerald, says, "You've some experience with this, surely, from the writing of your novels. Do you detect anything?"
I am greatly experienced in the manner of such things. I research all my writings thoroughly, I assure you, talking to only the best eminent Martian scientists that we have. And I conclude, Captain, that this man has been poisoned.
Dun, dun, dun. The perfect moment for that, right? So, poisoned. And at that, Lady Hawthorne says, "Preposterous. He was alone. The door was locked."
Well, that case, my lady, we have a mystery afoot. Perhaps a ghost, or perhaps a member of staff that wouldn't particularly be noticed traveling in and out. Perhaps, but I assure you, as sure as this nose is on my face, that this man has been poisoned.
So, as they're talking, Rosie gets closer to the caddy where the liquor is. Are you looking for anything in particular, or just taking a closer look?
I kind of wouldn't mind seeing if that actual thing has been tampered with, or if it was like in the glass or something like that. So I'm starting with the liquor because that's probably going to be the easiest to like assess from here before picking up the thing.
Sure.
But I'm just kind of curious as to whether or not like someone's dumped a bunch of it in the thing, in which case it was possibly like less of a targeted attack on that particular Hawthorne and more of a whoever we can get type deal.
Right. So, as you approach the caddy, and you can get a closer look at everything there, you do, first of all, notice a kind of smaller than the tumblers, condensation ring on the tray that would be more equivalent to like a small vial rather than a glass. And interestingly enough, you find a topper, like a cork topper, that, not cork, rubber, it's rubber, topper that is about that size. So while you don't necessarily find a vial, there's evidence that one was there.
Mr. Smithington, I think you should come and have a look at this.
What have you found? Let me...
And I'm going to point at the stopper, but not touch it.
I see. I reach into the inside pocket of my my lovely and rather expensive-looking tweed jacket that I have, and I pull out a very thin black glove that is the type of glove that one wears when one is a gentleman. Not so much to keep the cold off, but just so that one doesn't have to touch the doors that other people have touched. And I put this on, and I carefully, at the edges of this, pick up the cork, the rubber stopper, and put it to my nose. Do I get the same smell that
you do?
I smell? Yes. Well, whoever was the last person to hold this was the last person to see our good man alive, perhaps. I put it back down. I look round. My lady, I am afraid that someone here on this train was very intent on seeing your husband, or perhaps even one such as yourself, dead. Can you think of any such person who holds the grudges against you so vehemently that they would be so inclined to commit this heinous act?
So, as you're questioning Lady Hawthorne, you hear another kind of audible gasp from Miss Grayson, who's now entered the room. And you probably were able to see out of the corner of your eye that she was kind of going about and like doing what maids do, like tidying and looking into things. And she says, "Lady, the jewelry." And she notes from the next room and brings in this, kind of small jewelry box that's just empty. And Lady Hawthorne says, "Well, of course the jewelry has been stolen. Probably connected."
Does she seem more pissed off about the jewelry being stolen than the fact that her husband's just died?
You know, she seems like she's just kind of like, another thing. Like, it's very strange. She's not having a whole lot of emotional reaction to anything more than just frustration and this is unbelievable. It is well known that Reginald, although very, large and in charge, as it were, a very robust man, he was aging, and he was from Earth. He was about 2.5 feet shorter than her, and quite wealthy. All of their money comes from him, not her. She's from a very kind of, not poor, but average Martian family of the working class. So yeah, she just seems frustrated by the whole thing. And I mean, people have said in the past many times that they question whether or not there's actually any relationship between Reginald and the lady, in terms of, you know, any love, as it were. Many people feel there's no love lost between them, although they have always been very pleasant and engaging with everyone they interact with in public, and in any kind of polite society. But yeah, she doesn't seem like, it's strange. You would expect someone, and maybe it's a difference, maybe it's a cultural difference between Earth and Mars, because people do develop differently, particularly when they grow here, right? As evidenced by her height. She is truly a native Martian. But maybe it is that they just were not close. It was a marriage of convenience, or a marriage of, it could be any number of things. It's difficult to say. But she's just kind of upset that this is happening more than it did happen, if that makes sense.
Okay. I think... Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think Olivia, having noted that, or whatever, offers to give Miss Grayson some assistance in writing, or in helping to sort the room out, or at least gather her lady's clothes so that she might be, equipped elsewhere away from this.
Sure.
Just stuff like that, mostly as an excuse to get some gossip and just kind of get a bit of a sense as to what's going on in this room.
Sure.
Maybe see if you can find the other half of that vial or something like that.
Right. And what is Gerald going to be doing?
Gerald is going to go to Lady Hawthorne, and he will look at my lady. We're still some time away from the next stop. There's no opportunity for anyone to go anywhere. Let me offer my services. My associate and I, we will perform a thorough and rigorous investigation on your part. No fee is required. I assure you, our services are offered with utmost respect, and only for interest to find out what has occurred in this room tonight. Please allow us to take this on for you, and respect for all of the fine works that you and your families have done for... What's a terrible state of affairs. We'll get to the bottom of it before we arrive at the next station, I assure you, madam.
Okay, how are you going to persuade her?
I am going to, I guess, be clever and try to, almost like a sale or a purchase. He's going to use his kind of dealing of acquisition.
Okay.
I'm trying to acquire something here, which is a little bit out of the norm, but it fits with Sticky Beak. He's wanting to use that ability because he wants to know, because he's a nosy Parker, and he also definitely has an issue here. And as Olivia has mentioned, the opportunity perhaps for a real story to hand back to the publishers. All names changed, of course, so that they do not match those of the living, and he, or deceased, Yes. So yeah, he's gonna call upon his skills as a clever man used to bartering and trade.
Okay. So go ahead and make that roll. And Russ, how is Rosie approaching Miss Grayson?
In that same sort of like, I think she'd be a lot more concerned. Inwardly, she's fucking seething because she's really, really angry about the fact that somebody has come in here, murdered somebody on what she considers to be her train, and also has stolen something that she was already planning on stealing. So there's a little bit of that, but also she's like, she's basically just like, hey, let me help you get this and get sorted. You're clearly not in the right state of mind to be doing this by yourself. Like, but come at it more as a friendly,
You're muted there, Russ.
Oh, sorry. Was I muted for all of that?
No. Last I got was you're coming at it as sort of a friendly.
Yeah, that kind of. Yeah, friendly and just sort of like we're on the same side here, basically, type. You know, and just acknowledging the fact that what she's doing is stressful and scary and just trying to comfort her, really.
Okay, so which approach do you want to use? Which one do you think fits with that description? I'm thinking careful.
Yeah, that would be mine. There's not really like a charisma-y one, I guess.
No, not really.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I'm going to do.
Okay. So, again, you can take the roll. Also keep in mind that your once all the gossip is potentially activatable here, either before or after, but you went ahead and made it. So let's see, you got, ooh, that's a decent roll. So
yeah.
plus one with your careful of 2 is a +3. How'd you do, Croy?
I got a
is that your roll?
Yeah, 6, a 4, a 5, and a 3.
That's +2, and you were rolling clever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's +5. So yeah, both of you succeed. In terms of Rosie engaging with Miss Grayson, she is very happy to have the help. She is really distraught, you could tell. And she keeps glancing over at Sir Reginald's body. And just, you can tell she, at any moment, could just break down in tears. But she's still very fastidiously going about, checking the room and looking around as you go with her and kind of assist and continue to look around as well. You do very quickly find the vial, interestingly enough, that probably fits the stopper.
Okay. I use one of my handkerchiefs to sort of pick it up and just slip it into my bag.
Okay.
I'm not really keen to draw attention to it right now.
Okay. And while you're working with her, you hear her, she says she doesn't understand why at this hour Sir Reginald would be alone in the room, and how did Lady Hawthorne get locked out? Where is her key? So she keeps, she's kind of saying it to you, but also kind of mumbling it to herself. So there's that. And it appears that, from her description, that both she and also the captain at the same time kind of converged on the room and were able to unlock the door, but apparently Lady Hawthorne was outside and locked out as well. So yeah, that's what you get. Now, in terms of Gerald persuading her, she listens. As she goes and sits down, just has a seat on a settee and kind of lounges, and she looks at you, and she looks over at Captain Blackthorn and says, "Well, it's your train." And he looks at you and says, "If you think you can figure this out, I'm more than happy to give you the run of the train."
Captain, that will be our duty until we have solved this. We will not sleep, I assure you. Your support in this matter is fantastic. But as one would have it, every good captain will know who else has access to this room other than yourself and the occupants.
Well, if in the spirit of being completely honest, then yes, I have access to the room. Miss Sullivan would have access to the room as the engineer. Miss Grayson has a key. We just happen to converge here at the same time. That should be all. Any of the serving staff would have to coordinate with Miss Grayson to see to any deliveries or in-room service. She is completely in charge of who gains access among the serving staff, as Sir Reginald did not have a man of his own to handle such things.
Really a man of the people. I'm so lost. I see. This room, there's no other access, I understand. This door here is the only one that is able to come and go. There's the room next door. Any other opportunity for someone, some blighter to sneak in and do this unnoticed?
Well, no. Perhaps you've written some interesting things in some of your novels, or perhaps seen some of the hollow films of people crawling through air ducts, but I assure you, no such things occur here. The ducts on the train are barely large enough for a small dog to be able to traverse, let alone a person. Maybe perhaps a mechanical pet of some kind, but that seems outlandish.
As you say, fit for imagination, yes. Does he look to be suitably shocked and surprised? Does he give out any air of anything other than being genuine? I'm not saying he's lying about ducks or anything, but just like his demeanor, is it as might be expected as the...
So what you notice is that he is occasionally almost as if asking permission before every bit of information that he gives you. He looks at Lady Blackwood. Now back to Rosie. As Evelyn is her name at this point. I feel like you can be on a first name basis with Evelyn Grayson. Evelyn continues to kind of ramble about the goings on, and she says, I don't. Lady Hawthorne never misplaces her things. I can't believe that she misplaced her key. It just doesn't make sense. And then the strange letter that Miss DuPont has asked me to pass on to Sir Reginald early in the day, and it's all very strange occurrences.
A letter?
Yes, Miss DuPont, clearly, surely you're aware of Madame DuPont on... she's in the sleeping carriage, but she spends a lot of her time on the observation carriage just looking at the sky. She's a soothsayer, you know. She asked me to pass a letter to Sir Reginald not 6 hours ago.
Very strange. Most improper. Yes, that is very curious. It's also strange that Lady Hawthorne has lost her keys, by the
It
sounds.
makes no sense. She's almost... She almost psychically knows where everything is at all times. It's unbelievable that she lost her key. And where was she at this time of night in full regalia as she is?
I don't know, but she might be getting a bit uncomfortable. Perhaps we should get her dressed for bed and find her somewhere in which to sleep. Captain, is there another quarters for the lady?
Oh, very, very good idea, miss. Yes, we can set her up in another suite just down the hall that currently is unused, just in case someone else, someone nefarious, were to try to take advantage of the situation. And Captain Blackthorn offers his hand, or Blackwood rather, offers his hand to Lady Victoria, and they stand, and Victoria glances at Miss Grayson, who also kind of quickly, stops whatever she was doing, and at that glance immediately falls into step behind her. And unless you stop them at your suggestion, they head off down the hall.
I would say, just as they're heading out, my lady, if it is permitted, we will be along shortly. We must speak with you, but we'll finish up and take care of... Captain, can I request some of the orderlies of the train to attend? We must deal with this, with Mr.
Yes, by all means, I'll rouse them once we get Lady Blackthorn to her suite. Hawthorne. These names. And the lady says, "Yes, I shall forestall my repose so that you may interview me, I suppose."
It is just a matter of diligence, my lady. It will only be a short while.
I understand.
Okay, so are we now, Rosie and Gerald, alone in the room?
You are alone in the room with the body.
So we can speak more frankly. I say,
This is...
quite.
Well, you'll get your story at least.
It's writing itself. Delightful.
Somebody's been murdering and stealing on my turf. I don't know that I particularly approve of this, but I'm glad you will get a story from it at least.
Perhaps we can take out the competition after all, because they will not be selling anything to me. That would not be my business interests. I didn't have much to do with Sir Reginald, unfortunately. He was a little bit above my levels of contact, but some of his associates would be quite interested as well to know about this. I think we've landed ourselves in quite a profitable situation in one way or another.
You actually know at least one of his associates on the train. A scientist named Archibald Wainwright. Close compatriot of the Hawthorne family. Spends a lot of time with Sir Reginald, and in fact, some time with Lady Hawthorne. Individually.
Well,
yes, the lady's maid mentioned that Madame Dupont had asked for a letter to be passed to Lord Hawthorne.
The soothsayer, poppycock, no science involved. There's such a terrible means of manipulation. Probably said that unless he passed a significant sum of cash, that his life would be forfeit. That would actually make them correct. Now, did you see the letter?
No, just that one had been passed. But I did find the vial, And she reaches in and pulls out the handkerchief that has the vial of poison in it that she's being very careful to like make sure stays contained within the handkerchief.
Yeah, I just lean over and just sniff the vial just to make sure it is what I expect it to be.
Yeah, it is. And you do know that there is a specialist in Martian archaeology and botany on the train as well. You may have had a conversation with him, a Dr. Augustus Whitman. He was engaged in an excavation at Magini, where he boarded the train with a lot of his equipment, actually, including some biological samples.
I've checked the body, just in case that letter's there. Of course, you understand.
No, of course.
He does have a letter in his pocket. Mysterious note. It reads... It's a single line on written in very neat hand on a full sheet of paper that's folded up. It says, "Beware the gears of fate turning, for they bring demise."
Well, that was accurate.
For once. My goodness.
Perhaps
Terrible way.
it's self-fulfilling prophecy.
Maybe reading these words will just... No, I'm still alive.
What do we think? The lady has also lost her room key. Miss Grayson insists that this is quite out of character, but I don't know, like, I just think whoever stole and poisoned and all of this probably also stole the keys.
Yeah. Perhaps they found the keys opportunistically. But what about Dr. Whitman? He's known for his love of plants. He might either be able to identify this or look terribly guilty when we ask him about it. We should perhaps
we should go.
But
Yes, call on the good doctor.
the lady will be some time getting settled. This body, is there anything else of any interest or otherwise on the body as we rifle through the pockets?
No, I mean, aside from his personal cigar case that he has and a very fine cigar tip chopper, no idea what those are called, and, a fine pocket watch, just his personal effects.
Frightful. These real men smoke a pipe. It's terrible that there is this new passion towards these cigars. I don't understand it. It's much. Anyway, I must not speak ill of the dead. I don't think it was his smoking habit that killed him. That could never happen.
Perfectly healthy hobby.
Indeed. Upstanding. Anyway, shall we exit and find ourselves the doctor? The lady can wait. And perhaps we come to her after. Knowing what this is might be quite helpful. And I go and get the rubber stopper and pick up that and hand it back to Rosie. Could you...
So at this point...
before we do anything,
Sure.
Are the gentleman's keys on him? Like, for the room?
Good question. And yes, they are.
Okay, I take them because I'm gonna lock the door behind me.
Okay.
I know that's probably not great for the murderer and stuff, but, like, we don't want other randos just wandering in, so...
Well, before you do that, the porters show up that you had requested, and they say that Captain Blackwood has instructed them to take the body to the cooling room in the dining car.
Okay. We will check that out a little later, I suppose.
You can still lock the door if you want to wait until they port the body out. Okay. How are you going to find out where Dr. Whitman is?
Is there a doctor on board?
Yeah. We have run of the...
You can ask one of the porters.
Yeah.
They generally know where everybody is on the train, or at least where their quarters are.
Yeah, we've got run. And so, I speak to one of the porters. We're temporarily working with the captain. He's giving us leave of the train. Tell me, the good doctor, Whitman, with his equipment. We saw him come on board, and I've seen him around. Could you please let me as to his direction, the room that he's in, sir?
Certainly, and they give you his room. It's on sleeping carriage B. They say that he is likely either there, or he does also have a small lab set up that he occasionally works in, or was working in earlier in the day in cargo carriage B.
Well, I suppose we start in the sleeper carriage and continue on.
Okay. So you go over to Dr. Whitman's room and knock on the door, maybe a few times, because it is the dead of night, but he does in fact answer, and he looks a little bleary-eyed. He is, kind of in his long johns. Strangely, he is kind of wearing his hat, so he may have grabbed his derby and put it on his head before he opened the door, even though he's wearing long johns. And, yeah, what? Hello?
Doctor. You will not... It is myself.
Is that the writer?
Yes, I have been known to pen like on occasion. It is not that I seek. I'm here on... We are here, my associate Olivia and I, on request of Lady Hawthorne and Captain...
He tips his hat to Rosie and says, of course, Mr. Smithsonian, how can I help you?
Can we, the rooms aren't very big, are they? So we won't necessarily impose ourselves. We'll talk in the doorway. We have come across...
You can also go to the observation carriage, which is right nearby.
Yeah, he's in his long johns, but...
He is.
Yes. Would you like a moment to dress appropriately? Perhaps we could talk in slightly wide
roomier
berth.
Yes. One moment. He closes the door, and you hear him rummaging around, and he opens the door again, and now he's wearing his long johns and one of his archaeology smocks that he wears that has a whole bunch of pockets in it and some tools hanging off of the belt. Shall we go to the observation car?
Yes. Let us do that.
Yes.
And he's still wearing the hat as well. So you head over to the observation car. Inside, you actually see Madame DuPont and Colonel Sinclair, who's a military officer, sitting off to the side, chatting. It doesn't look like she's doing her soothsaying bit. They're just having a discussion. But yeah, there's plenty. It's largely empty. There's plenty of space for you to sit down with Dr. Whitman and ask him some questions.
Yeah, I say to Olivia, let the good doctor have a look at this vial that we've found. If you'd be so kind.
Of course.
Yeah, he takes it and looks at it, takes a sniff. He's like, that's rust hemlock. Where did you get that? Quite dangerous.
How dangerous?
Well, large enough dose, say, this entire vial would kill a large animal.
Would it do it quickly?
Oh, within moments.
That's frightful stuff.
Interesting.
How would one get hold of the rust hemlock?
Oh, well, I happened to give a vial of this earlier today to Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence Bennett.
You did?
Yes, he told me he was studying botany and was interested in some of the species that we've been able to grow here on Mars, but have modified to be able to exist in the environment and in with less terraforming efforts on our part. And I gave him a case full of said vials for his study and a small fee.
Most understandable. What out of character, what would a case entail? Like
Like a small imagine like a small box of tea with different packets or vials in it. And yeah, not like huge, but something that is you could probably slip within a large pocket in a coat.
okay.
Probably
And
something that
vials?
has with the size vial you have, probably at least 20 vials, 20 samples.
It seems like a dangerous thing to be handing out.
Oh, well, he assured me he was a scientist. He was doing research. He seemed quite knowledgeable.
Interesting. Well, thank you for identifying this. Have you got any further questions, Mr. Smithington?
Where did you get that hat?
Oh, I had this hat imported from Earth.
Oh,
There's a fine haberdashery in Boston.
quite exquisite. I will be back to talk with you before we make the next station. I would like to make you an offer, but now is not the time. I appreciate your time, and good night, sir. Thank you. Rest well for the evening, and know that you've been of great service to the captain, to the good lady.
Oh, of course.
Wait until he's either made. If he gets up, I assume he goes back to bed or whatever. But
he actually, he's. I think he's waiting for you to get up.
that's fine. Yeah, so that's
And
not a problem. We just
if you glance at him as you walk away, you see that he's kind of leaned back in the chair and moved the hat down over his face, and looks like he's just going to sleep right there.
Okay. Rosie's going to venture over to Madame Dupont.
Okay.
Before we leave, and smile at her and be like, "Oh, Madame Dupont, fancy running into you here. How
Is
is
it?
your... Well, I have not ventured into the decks. Observation carriage before.
Oh, and she gives Colonel Sinclair a knowing look. She says, "But I knew this would happen."
Did you? Perhaps you could tell me what else might happen to me. I do not like surprises very much.
Oh, well, I don't give away secrets for free.
What about notes?
I've been known to pass a letter or two through appropriate channels.
Just appropriate ones?
When the subject of one of my visions is of such import, I see it necessary to give counsel without pay.
Most generous of you.
Well, I only do what I can. I'm simply sad it was too little too late.
Too
Yes.
little too late for what?
Well, I feel, unfortunately, that the recipient of the message either did not pay attention to it or did not reach them in time.
You seem most certain of news. What is it that you suspect?
Oh, I think I know I think you know what I suspect.
I look at the Colonel. Is he just looking on amusedly?
He's more bemusedly, like he's not quite sure what's happening.
Okay.
Yes, it was quite a shame what happened to her.
Him, you mean, dear? Him, certainly.
Interesting. Well, perhaps we should return to the carriage, Mr. Smithington.
Yes. We have some gears to investigate.
You do note, I should point out, that Colonel Sinclair is armed, and he's the only person on the train that has been.
Ah.
Unless either of you have something concealed, which is completely up to you. That's your character. But he's the only person on the train that is openly armed. He has a cavalry saber at his hip, although it's adjusted while he's seated. And he does have a fine Martian derringer strapped to his belt.
As Mars like outlawed hat pins, because Olivia would, or Rosie would totally have a big hat pin that was like occasionally useful, but mostly not because that, yeah.
Nope, hat pins are fine.
Excellent.
I guess at this point, the collector part of Gerald just takes that note and doesn't say anything, but you see him, he looks at it, pauses, kind of, and then turns round and then puts his hand to his chin and says, walks a bit with Rosie and says, do you have any objections for acquiring items from military targets, my dear?
Not particularly. Except for the fact that it makes it more dangerous, but...
I love how you guys are trying to solve a mystery while at the same time kind of setting up your own marks, like, well, I need to look into that, I need to take that. It's great.
Madam Q... Okay, so within the context of the world, before I, like... Because Rosie would know this, Russ doesn't.
Sure.
But, like... Is it possible that Madame Dupont actually has some sort of, like, foresight? Like...
So, you know that historically, there was a time where such things were possible. And in the circles that actually both of you kind of engage in, you've certainly heard rumors that there are still some people that have the gift. Much like in the Victorian era, spiritualism is very rampant in this kind of setting as well. But also extremely like the Victorian era. almost all of the spiritualism is just fake, like people just bilking people. But
Okay.
is it possible? Historically, yes. So maybe.
Okay. So, do you think it's not implausible that Madame Dupont is not a total fraud, but the fact that she knows, yes, the fact that she knows and corrected the gender of the murder victim kind of either she knows what has happened because she is gifted, or she knows something about the murder, or she committed the murder in an attempt for some sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. That
What a twist.
seems...
Imagine. A letter, and it's not merely a fortune told, but a threat intended to be carried out. Fascinating. Shall we go and
There's a...
find this Mr. Bennett studying botany?
Perhaps. Although I feel as though we maybe should check in on Lady Hawthorne before she gets too grumpy with us for keeping her awake. She did say that she would delay her slumber in order to speak with us.
I suspect that she'll have no problem sleeping despite the fact that her beloved husband has expired this eve. Ay, what is... Seems the rumors might well be true.
Then to Mr. Bennett, I suppose.
Let us be quick.
Okay.
Before the lady is able to concoct another story, perhaps, to throw us off the trail.
Yes.
So in your past observation of Mr. Bennett, you've seen him, well, as you did in the opening of the story, you've seen him quite a bit on the lounge carriage, gambling. However, you also know, perhaps you decided to go back and mingle or for whatever reason, but you know that he has a seat in steerage. He does not have a sleeper. He is among the low class, and so he is generally either in the lounge, which he's not currently, or he's in steerage.
Well then, to steerage, I suppose.
Yeah.
So
Crack through into the...
as you enter the steerage carriage, and kind of sweep your gaze over the various seats, and there are many. Think of a normal, like, passenger train car, which has seating for maybe 30 people shoulder to shoulder in tight rows with an aisle between, and multiply that by like 10, and that's what the steerage cars are. Just people packed in. Thankfully, on this leg of the trip, there's not a lot of people making that same trip, so there are people literally just laid out on metal benches trying to get some form of rest. But you do see one familiar head about midway down the car looking in your direction, and as soon as he sees you, he gets up and runs.
Running. I suppose we better give chase.
Quite. And a pace, a brisk walk breaking into a run. Gerald will begin to follow after in the direction.
Okay. So at a brisk walk, you're not going to keep up with him, but it's not hard to see where he's going. He's heading towards the rear of the carriage, and he gets there and he opens the door and he heads into steerage carriage B. Assuming you continue at a brisk pace, you soon enter steerage carriage B and see him again, probably about halfway down because he's booking.
Okay. At this point, I don't know about if Rosie's already burst through the door.
Rosie very, very grumblingly gathers up her skirts and has actually giving chase. She's not very happy about it because there's a lot of fabric in those garments. And she's probably snagged it at least once on something and ripped it, which means she's going to have to fix it. So she's not very happy about that either. But she does give chase, and her skirts are gathered up, showing a flash of very inappropriate ankle as she chases after this guy.
And Gerald also likewise picks up speed and breaks into a run.
So go ahead and both of you give me a quick test. And if you want to activate anything beforehand, let me know.
I have an aspect of being an amateur athlete. Does that help in any way?
You can spend a fate point, get a +2.
I will do that.
Okay.
So if I take one of the coins and then just
throw it back in the pile up top, yeah. Or honestly, you could just delete it. I can always pull in more. However you want to handle it.
Yeah, okay. So I'll roll. Oh, goodness. Terrible roll.
Okay, so... So with, let's see, you're at -3, +2 from your quick, +2 from the aspect, so you're at +1, which is average. You want to spend a second fate point to re-roll that with the same bonus?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's burn that point. And I'll re-roll that because that was awful. That's not much better.
It's really, it is better actually, because you've got, the roll is a 0, but you've got a +4. So you are at 1 level above good.
Great.
Yeah, you're at great. So yeah, that's a great roll, as it were.
Yep.
Russ?
So I got a 5, 2 3s, and a 2, and I've got a +2 in quick. So I think
That's a good roll.
I'm basically at +2.
Yeah, you're at +2. Or that's fair, right? That's what we were looking for. I was looking for fair from both of you. So yeah, excellent. Now with the great roll, Gerald actually manages to get up to him a fraction of a second, before Rosie does. Do you want to reach out, put your hand on his shoulder, or what are you attempting to do?
I want to rugby tackle the blighter.
Oh, you're going to rugby tackle him. All right. So, yeah, Russ rolls up right with you, but you tackle him to the ground, and he's like, What? I ain't done nothing.
If you haven't done anything, why did you run?
It's a good question. Why are you chasing me?
Because you
Why
ran.
have you been watching me?
I just have a minor interest in statistics, man. You were offering that up.
So, I will say that, Croy, you can feel a rectangular object in his coat.
So yeah, at this point, I remove myself from I pull my arms out from underneath him where he's collapsed face first onto the floor, And as I do that, and I kind of go to my knees, I say, oh, well, we're quite interested in some of the provisions you have. Perhaps this, and I reach in. It's either a gun or it's a box of something.
It's a small case. Yeah.
Now, before we make any more of a scene, and people are watching, why don't you just quietly and carefully turn yourself and get up? Stand away from the door, please, sir. We are operating under the authority of the captain and Lady Hawthorne.
Fine. He stands up.
I open the case. The expectation of small packets of leaves or
there are
petals
19 vials of
yes.
powders and liquids and sometimes whole leaves, seeds. One vial is missing.
I show it to Rosie.
You seem to be missing a vial.
Not missing anything. I sold that vial.
Did you?
Yeah.
Who acquired said vial?
I sold it to the lady.
The lady.
Yeah, the rich lady, the tall lady.
Okay.
Now, sir, we merely glanced in your direction before you took off like a hound. What is it that you are concerned that we do know about? I beseech you, talk candidly, my friend.
So he pulls something out of his pocket. It is a small rod of some kind that has some gears on it. There's a crystal. And he says, "Look, I paid good money for this, and it's been working well. I figured you were after this. It lets me control the probabilities in the machines."
Do either of us, does Gerald recognize it? Is this something known, or is this just some...
Nothing you've ever seen before, but he's saying it lets him control the probabilities in the automated mechanical gambling machines.
Okay. Well, seemed to be working for you tonight.
Yeah, I mean, over a short period, you don't win a whole lot, but if you play long enough, and I've been planning on staying on this train for as long as I can, it adds up.
Well, good luck to you then.
Where did you acquire such an item?
Oh, I bought it in an alley off a guy in McGinney.
Makes sense. Very good. If you ever feel like paying for some tuition in probability, then here's my card.
It works, I tell you. You play long enough, it all balances out. You're looking at it. It looks like just like something that somebody threw together out of scraps. Like you can't tell if it even has like any functioning parts. It might as well be some gears welded onto a small brass rod with a crystal on it. Like it's But who knows? Maybe.
Well, we'll leave you to it. We have business elsewhere. Come along. And she kind of like just hooks her arm through Mr. Smithington's and just kind of like leads him away from this man who is either very gullible or does have something, but she doesn't really care because that's not the kind of like theft she's into.
Right. Okay. So what are you going to do?
I think we need to talk to the lady.
I think so. The gears of fate have indeed turned. So, yeah, can we walk back up at a more civilized pace?
Okay. So you head back to the first class carriage and you go to the room that you suspect that, well, not suspect, you saw them walk off, so it would have been easy to tell, just a room down the hall on the third floor. And there are actually two porters standing outside of the door to the room. And these porters do appear to be armed with truncheons.
Just out of like, would we know what kind of business Lord Hawthorne was dealing in?
Sure. He was a public figure. He essentially, think of like a politician and a person for the people who he's wealthy. Just it's been in his family, so we'll say his family is he's tied to a well-known shipping organization, right? So his family has just been wealthy for generations. Especially, and there was a boom in their wealth when interplanetary shipping became a thing, and that had expenses of its own. So, and outside of all that, I mean, yes, he had all that wealth, but he also did what he could to help the people of the working class to gain representation in local governments, particularly in some of the smaller habdomes across Mars. He's initially from Earth, but he's kind of taken Mars under his wing as his chosen homeland, and has done as much as he can with the tools available to him and the voice available to him to try to give the working class representation, which is why people refer to him as the people's champion.
Okay.
And in fact, it would also be relatively common knowledge that Lady Victoria's family, as I mentioned earlier, is actually working class. So she came from the people that he was doing his best to, represent and uplift. And the stories of their meeting and marriage and courting and marriage basically indicate that he pursued her pretty strongly. There are some whispers that, as I said, that their marriage was not necessarily a happy one, and there are some indications that she rebuked him several times, but then finally decided to just become his wife. And since then, she has been very well known to just enjoy opulence, to use his money to live the most pleasant, enjoyable life she can live, which is no problem because he has so much of it. So he's essentially like Bill Gates and Elon Musk put together, but if they were actually good people. I mean, Bill Gates isn't the worst, but in terms of money, Like, that's about the strata he's in. And he's good. He literally tries to help people.
So, potential for a lot of enemies, because, yeah. Okay. But also, too, she's probably very much... If she came from nothing and had a heap of pressure on her to marry him, like... Because I would imagine that that would be something that her family would be pushing for, because it's a chance for them to move up in station. She could very much be a bird in a gilded cage.
Yep, and they certainly have done. I mean, she enjoys opulence personally, but she also does everything she can to filter money down to her family. Like, it's known that her family, down to like second and third cousins, are now living much more, shall we say, comfortable lives than anyone in their family had ever had before. She's very free with giving gifts to people of her family. She doesn't give gifts so much to just people in general. It's mainly just people in her family.
Could I very quickly flash back to Mr. Bennett and ask him one more question?
Absolutely.
Could I? Yeah. When he says, I sold it to the lady. Yeah. Can I just ask, who was it that you made the business transaction with?
Oh, well, her maid.
So back in the standing in front of the truncheon wielding guards.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, porters.
Maybe.
Yes, Rosie is.
This is most interesting.
Well, they see you coming and they're like, they, wave you in.
Okay.
Excellent.
Just
yeah, it's the captain probably placed guards there to protect the lady.
How does she look as we walk in?
She's actually sitting at a table. She has papers laid out in front of her. And it looks like she's got some spectacles on, which are not a normal part of her attire. And she appears to be going through, from a glance, what look to be financial papers.
My lady.
She, hurriedly, not as if she's guilty, just gathers the papers up and slides them into a valise and says, "Yes, you have your questions now?"
We do.
We do. Is the captain also here?
He is not.
I think I would like to have somebody else in the room that's not, like, massively connected, so I'm going to go to one of the porters and just ask if they would fetch the captain for us.
Okay. Would you like something to drink while we wait for the captain to arrive?
I think I'm fine.
We are making headway. We've found some notes of intrigue. For example, did you know there was a gentleman in the lounge carriage who was trying to utilize an entirely fruitless device to win at the hands of fate? He thought
Indeed.
merely by holding an item of absolutely no significance at all, he was able to win, and as everyone knows, the house wins, always.
Interesting. What has that to do with the death of my husband?
Were you... Oh, wait, I'm kind of stalling. I was waiting for the captain. Were you aware that your late husband was in contact with his soothsayer?
Madame Dupont? Wouldn't surprise me. He believed in such things.
And yourself?
Well, it's all hogwash, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
There hasn't been that kind of magic in the world for ages. Not since the Maggio-Industrial Revolution.
Fine, it is. Now, where is that captain?
And yeah, the porter comes back kind of huffing, and the captain is also striding very quickly and enters the room, not really out of breath. He's a pretty potent individual, still youthful, but says, yes, is there a problem?
We feel as though we have made headway in our investigation, but felt that perhaps having everybody here would be most illuminating. Miss Grayson, who called you?
To when?
Before. What sent you fleeing from your quarters?
Oh, well, the lady rung me, asked me to come unlock her door. She had misplaced her keys.
Lady Hawthorne?
Yes. I was locked out of my own quarters. What am I to do, stand in the hall like a commoner?
No, but how did you call her?
With one of the intercoms. There are intercoms in the hallway.
Okay. So you called both the captain and your lady's maid?
I did not call the captain.
Who spoke to you, Captain Blackwood?
Oh, it was Miss Sullivan. She said she got an indication that there was a problem in the first-class car, that one of the suites was locked, and that the owner couldn't enter.
And you're still missing your key, Lady Hawthorne.
Yes, I have no idea where it went.
Okay. Mr. Smithington?
Who would have access to be able to, without your own realization, take the key from your possession?
Well, I mean, I always keep my key in my purse, so I assume poor Evelyn, but she would never do such a thing. And then there's any of the porters or anyone with access to the room, although they all have to go through Evelyn. Are you suggesting, sir, that my dear Evelyn is the one who stole my key?
This is a possibility. Would you also care to comment on Evelyn's connection or whereabouts as seen with Mr. Bennett? Are you aware of their connection, perhaps at your request?
A Mr. Who?
Does she look, like is she readable at that point?
You could make a test to try and gauge her intentions.
I want to see if she flinched. I want to see if she...
Okay.
I want to see if she...
Can I also make a roll?
Yeah?
But I'm watching Evelyn.
Okay.
Like, I don't...
Oh, well, Evelyn's not present.
Oh, where is she?
If you ask, the lady says, I assume she's returned to her sleeping quarters.
Oh, I just assumed she was in there helping her.
No.
Okay. Damn.
Yeah, I'd like to cleverly watch, just looking at the signals of her body language and her general demeanor as she tries to either confirm or otherwise. I rolled a terrible, I think, five and a one, a three. They're stuck on each other. Yeah, 3.
I think that's a 3, yeah.
Plus a 3.
No, it's actually minus. Oh, I see. Plus the 3 of your stats. So yeah, you're looking at a total of +2. Your read of her is that she, again, as she has been this whole time, just seems nonplussed, frustrated, a little bit confused by that question. Like she doesn't really know who you're referring to.
Could you perhaps call Evelyn once again? Ask her to attend.
Oh, Captain, could you? And he's like, and he goes over and grabs the intercom and speaks to someone. You're assuming it's probably, there's probably a switchboard in the locomotive of the train, or possibly even the caboose. And they connect, and he's just standing there waiting. He's like, there's no answer.
Okay. I'm just gonna go out to the thing and ask one of the porters to go and get her from the sleeping carriage. I know which room it is now, so.
Yeah. Okay, so they run off.
Yeah. Lady Hawthorne, how did you come to employ Miss Grayson?
Well, I met her family when I was younger, actually quite before I was married to Sir Reginald. I wouldn't say we were friends, but her family was from the same working quarter that mine was working in Moab and the mines. And when Sir Reginald suggested that I hire a maid, I thought of her family and thought it would be beneficial to her and her family if I hired her.
She does seem a most fastidious maid. I believe you've made a wonderful hiring choice, perhaps.
I believe so as well. And as you're having that conversation, you get the intercom rings, and the captain picks it up because he's still standing right there. He says, "Well, where is she?" And he hangs up. He says, "Evelyn's not in her quarters. I've dispatched the porter to grab a few more and search the train. Why are we looking for this dear girl?"
Shall we step out for a moment, Captain?
Certainly. He steps outside with you.
Because she brought poison.
Did she? Why would she?
That's what we're trying to, but she is either in danger or she is the danger.
So,
Nevertheless, she should be found.
I think what we'll do, because I think we're running up against time, we certainly are for me, and I want your honest opinions on who you think the culprit is. Do you think it's Evelyn? Do you think it's someone else? I'd like to know where we go before I wrap this up with a final scene, because I think that's kind of the not Evelyn. I think that scene with the captain is the moment where you are closest to revealing the possible mystery. So what do you guys have? What do you think?
I am 50-50 between Lady Hawthorne and Miss Grayson.
Okay.
Or potentially Miss Grayson on Lady Hawthorne's orders,
Okay.
depending on... I know that she's very distressed, but, like, you can also be distressed for just killing somebody.
Sure.
But I
sure.
also kind of like Lady Hawthorne, from what you've said, was basically pushed into a marriage that, like, or what the gossip is saying, was basically pushed into a marriage that's pretty loveless. She was pursued and chased, and depending on what's going on, may or may not actually like her husband that much.
Okay.
Like, so, or it potentially could have been Miss Grayson, who was, like, out for Lady Hawthorne and accidentally got him. What?
What do you think, Roy?
I am thinking that Evelyn is missing because she is evidence. She is an accessory. She is a loose end, and she has been tied up. And then that got me to thinking, who would have the means to perform an action of disappearing somebody quietly on the train? And I had to look back through my notes, and I found somebody who no doubt was well connected in a very strange discussion with a very strange character, Colonel Sinclair.
Okay.
And the reason that was a bit weird, that there was somebody, a military tactician, a specialist, one who believes in such hoodoo as Madame Dupont might be peddling, seems very peculiar. It seems incongruent. It just doesn't sit well. And
Yeah.
given the political machinations of military and the perhaps opposition of Sir Reginald, in terms of his popular recognition and such. It just seems a bit off. I would have wanted to go and maybe have another streak. It might be. I think Evelyn's been disposed. I don't think she's run off. I don't think she has the wherewithal. She was, after all, was she not infatuated with Sir Reginald? So,
Seems like it. So it takes, unfortunately, several hours to search the train. It's quite large, and to go through all the compartments and disturb people, there's not an endless amount of porters. Evelyn is not found, and at this point, Lady Hawthorne, when informed that Evelyn is not found on the train, shows some emotion. She seems truly distraught that Evelyn was not found. Are you going to try and point the finger at anybody before the train arrives, or are we going to call it, we don't know, and then the potential person might escape into Becquerel, into the big city, once the train arrives? The captain is deferring to you. You're essentially the NCIS of this train right now.
I would. The only person we haven't spoken to is Archibald Wainwright, so I suppose that was another loose end that we hadn't picked up
Or
on.
Miss Sullivan.
Could have been, yeah. Or Miss Sullivan, sure.
Actually, she would have the means probably to, like, get Evelyn off the train as the engineer.
Well, the train never slowed, because although it is an amazing feat of engineering and just a gigantic train, you can always sense the speed at which it's traveling. So it's questionable whether or not anyone could successfully leave the train at this speed.
The other thing is too, did the porter search Lady Hawthorne's chambers?
Yeah, they searched the entire train.
So either somebody's moving Evelyn
Ahead of the porters, yeah. I mean, there's only so many of them.
Which makes me think that maybe it's the captain because he knows the porters.
Interesting. I don't know that the captain will arrest himself on your word.
That's true. Like, that's not. But like, she can't not be on the train. Like, I don't.
It's possible she was lobbed off it.
So I'm gonna give you an epilogue once we're finished. I just want to know if you both feel like you have enough evidence to point the finger at someone.
There's still a couple of people we haven't really spoken to now that if we had more time, then maybe we could do that. And one of them is the Colonel, and the other one is Archibald Wainwright. Yeah, so lacking in evidence, I wouldn't point the finger. But I would write a letter of intrigue regarding the political machinations of opposition of Sir Reginald, and make note of that to Lady Hawthorne.
Okay.
But I don't think I'd point the finger at a colonel because that could end up in significant. But that's I would suspect state-sponsored assassination.
Interesting. Okay. What's Rosie think? Or is Rosie prepared to point the finger at anyone?
Rosie is not prepared to point the finger at anybody because Rosie very much likes, being alive and stuff. And that also attracts way more attention.
Sure.
She's a little bit concerned. I feel like the missing jewels are a red herring. And potentially, or an insurance job, depending on what's going on. I'm not really sure what to make of Lady Hawthorne. Or, in all honesty, Miss Grayson. But I feel like Miss Grayson was probably set up for something from somebody.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm probably not going to be pointing fingers because I don't know.
That's fair. And I mean, you don't have to, right? We can finish not knowing for sure. You have your thoughts. Were we going to continue? Obviously, we would kind of put it on hold. But I think I'll give you an epilogue and go from here. So flashback to just prior to you returning to Lady Hawthorne's chamber. The shot is the exterior of the train as it's speeding through the landscape. And you see one of the hatches on the side of one of the cargo compartments. There are airlocks, secure airlocks on the cargo compartments. One of the hatches opens and a suited figure throws a bundle with some effort off of the train. And the train continues off into the distance as the hatch closes, and the camera in this case would zoom in on the bundle. And although it is fairly well wrapped up, you would see a very recognizable scrap of clothing that would indicate that it's the same kind of night clothes that Evelyn was wearing as the train continues on its journey, and this bundle is left in the Martian desert. And And that's it.